Hi, everybody. Welcome to another event from Keep Indiana Learning. My name is Melissa, and we are Keep Indiana Learning coaches. And today's session is part of a Survivor series for educators. Today's topic is New Year, New Perspectives. Like I said, my name is Melissa. I'm the EdTech specialist and technology coach from Hanover Community School Corporation. And then in addition to that, I'm a Keep Indiana Learning digital learning coach. I have started quite a few calendar years throughout my career. How about you, Amy?
Hi. Yes. Oh my goodness. I think this is my 18th calendar year that I've started. And it's so awesome to talk to friends that are on the calendar year and then the school calendar year, right? But again, I'm Amy Stevens. I'm the Project Lead the Way launch teacher at Tri Elementary in the South Henry School Corporation, as well as a Keep Indiana Learning digital learning coach. It's wonderful to see everyone today.
Hey, and I'm Julia Crone. I am a tech integration specialist from Plainfield Community Schools. And isn't that so true? All the time I talk to my husband and I'm like, well, next year. And he's like, 2024 year, are you talking about that? I'm like, no, like the next school year. And it's so funny because that starts in August. And honestly, that's what, even in January, I feel like a lot of us are looking already to the next school year as well, too. And I feel like a lot of the things that we're going to chat about today, when it comes to the new year and new perspectives, a lot of these are going to be tips to that center around being personally challenged and growing both as educators and as people.
So, with that, we have a series of tips. And our first tip for surviving the new year with a new perspective is just to not stress about it being a new year. Everywhere you look, I feel like you hear about new year, new me, and it's time to start working out or start a new nutrition program. Nothing different happens on January 1. I think we have to focus on what's working for us and just do more of that. So continue the good things. And I think some of that is easier said than done, but if we just keep that in our mind, then that helps. So if you do choose to start something new, start small with a goal that is completely attainable. I recently heard something new about goal setting and changing habits. It really kind of resonated with me. It was, if you want to start a new habit, focus on just one thing. So don't change all the things, but pick one and then do it for 30 days before you really add in anything else new. I think that makes sense to me. I think attainable goals and small wins are helpful in feeling successful and happy. So, small wins, that's my mantra for going into this new year. So, how does that carry over into the classroom? We can do the same for our students. I think it's important to model for our students that we are setting goals and continuing to grow as humans forever. Your goals can be big or small, just like student goals. So, with that in mind, it's not New Year, New Me. It's New Year, same me, just getting better every day.
Yeah, in January, I joined the Biggest Losers at my school, and today I had Chipotle delivered with queso and chips. So I think I'm already breaking some of the New Year, New Me. I'm going to have to probably pay for my teammates when I go to weigh in tomorrow. So I'll keep that in mind. Maybe 30 days no DoorDash for Julia is something I need to do. But I totally agree with that. I think that's fantastic. Big or small, I'm going to go small and just 30 days with no DoorDash. So. Tip number 2 for new to really go into the new perspectives, get experts or community members into your classroom. It brings a whole different dynamic. It encouraged the students to have discussion and to incorporate critical thinking, and that brings that new perspective into your classroom. Inviting specialists into your classroom, whether that's online or that's face-to-face, allows students to build ideas. They don't have to just hear from you. It gets something that when you can relate it to class, it makes what you're learning real world, and it gets their heads kind of spinning and inspires your students to be like, oh, I didn't even know that job existed, or I didn't know that that was an issue we had in our community, and it gets our students thinking. I worked in the maker space for 3 years before I became the tech integration specialist, and so we kind of had the interim year with COVID where we didn't have people come in, where we did it face to face. But some of the ways I had people come in, we had students working on a carcinogen unit, and we had a cancer research specialist come in from Eli Lilly. Our school, we got 2 new drones that were donated to us, and I had no idea how to fly the drones. So I called the fire department after I asked a few people, and they were like, everyone at the fire department has to be drone certified for XYZ, or they have a person. So then they came in and trained a couple of our students, and then our science team used it for a speed and velocity lab, where they flew it outside and they saw how fast the drone was able to pick up speed. It was super cool. We do a big interview unit in 7th grade, and students research jobs, and we bring in about 50 people each day. So about 100 people from our community, parents and community members alike, police officers, firefighters, anyone you can kind of think of, and they interview our students. So it is so exciting. The kids get dressed up, and it's just, instead of just presenting or performing for your class, it brings a whole nother level of inspiration and level of buy-in by your students. And right now I'm working with a 4th grade teacher who's absolutely awesome. And she had this idea to have her students podcast in her class. And she had small business owners come in right before Christmas, and her 4th grade students interviewed them, and even created little advertisements for them on Canva. So they did some digital design. But you can even bring in your superintendent. You can bring in your finance officer whenever you're talking about money or economics. Think about different ways you can bring people in. And then, of course, there's all sorts of different ways, even if someone's in Thailand or New Zealand, Bangladesh. I mean, think about anywhere in the world, you can make some different connections. So bring people in. Inviting experts enriches your content. It encourages motivation and participation and critical analysis of skills. And then kids get to use some different tech tools as well too whenever they get to come in, and it allows them to have relevant real world experiences. So a new perspective, bring them into your classroom.
So Julia, I'm thinking also authentic audience, because my 4th graders are going to be getting ready to do a podcast on the importance of wearing a helmet to protect your brain, because they've been learning about the human brain in Project Lead the Way launch. And I'm thinking to myself, wouldn't it be cool if we connected our 4th graders and just did a podcast, evaluation, let's listen into Mrs. Stevens's class in Newcastle, Indiana, and let's listen to. That'd be kind of cool.
I am not kidding you. Let's connect, because my teacher, she would be floored and so excited, and the kids would absolutely love it.
I love this. See, you got new perspectives.
Connections right there.
Bring him in. I bring him in. Okay, so speaking of making connections, this is my next tip. Is something that one of my former mentors, she had us do this every January. And it seemed kind of funny in the middle of the school calendar, because I felt like you were halfway through the year. But we sat down and we pulled up our Google calendars. And what we did is we just kind of randomly picked dates between January 1 and the last day of school. And we just did 1 or 2 a month. And we titled them with maybe quotes or thoughts or inspiration that spoke to us. We also set calendar reminders, send Melissa a note of cheer today. And it would just be a quick email. And so let's say, Melissa, you were my calendar reminder. And it would just be Melissa, I think of you, but today my calendar brought you up. And I wanted to make sure I was intentional about saying, I hope you have a great day. I hope things are going your way. And if you need me, I'm either, an email, a phone call, a building, whatever away. And so one of the neatest things that would happen is that we would get to April, spring break is over and done. And bing, there goes my calendar. And it was just something that either lightened my heart or my mind, but also if it was an opportunity to connect with someone, it brightens someone else's day as well. So just a new way of using your calendar, just to not only help yourself but also others.
I love that tip. What a kind and intentional way to connect with other people.
Mhm.
And I think that can easily get lost in our busy lives. And we mean to send a card, we mean to touch base, we mean to do all those things, but it just gets lost in the shuffle. And it seems like a simple email wouldn't be a big deal. But if you're on the receiving end of that, it really does make your day. So I think that is a great idea. I love it.
Thank you.
Um, I love that tip as well, because as somebody who lives and dies by my calendar and my lists, I would love nothing more than to sit down and play with my calendar. I have to keep my digital and my paper calendar because I won't give it up. With all my tech tools and all my tech love, I still have my paper planner up to date, and my reminder notifications are on my digital calendars in order to keep my life in line. Otherwise, I am a mess. Which brings me to tip number 4, which is to use all those tools we have at our fingertips. There's so many tech-based tools, and everybody uses different things, but use what you have at your fingertips to keep yourself organized, manage your lives, and plan for everything. So many times, for me, I even have to sometimes remind myself to go in and make sure my calendars are synced up, to make sure everything's in line. It just makes life easier. So one of the things I've tried to do is help set up the people that I work with up for success. Like when I have my grade level tech meetings, I have created a shared rolling agenda. And so I link everything on one document for them. It helps everybody with managing links. So when they sit down, we can instantly start off our meeting. They're not saying, okay, but where's the tab? Where's the link? Where do I find this? It's all right in front of them. I send it to their calendar. It's there. They can just click it. And then the added bonus is everybody has all those notes and agendas and can always refer back to them without searching for them. I figure if it works for me and it helps me, why not help somebody else as well? So I've been doing that, and I think it really helps. And then it also kind of teaches people, if they're not as familiar with Google Calendar, or if they struggle a little bit with their Drive, it helps get them in there and get used to it. So that's something that I do on my work side. As far as myself, I've been very intentional this year about my own systems. So even the smallest tools, like using my phone alarm to remind me when I have to leave one building to get to the other on time, because I'm notorious. I'm just going to do one more thing before I have to leave to go to the high school. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be late. I try to just set that alarm so I make sure I leave on time. Taking notes digitally in the same documents every single time. I can't even believe I was this person, but I would have all of these Post-its in front of me. And then at the end of the day, I would have this fear, I'm going to lose these Post-its. So I would take a picture of my Post-its so that I would know I would have them. I can't believe that was me, but it was. So now I use Google Keep for my notes and my reminders for the future. It's so much more efficient and easier and smart. And all these little tech tools that help us should not be overlooked. And what would we do without them? I just can't imagine. So that's my tech tip is whatever you have, use it.
That makes me think about Google Keep. You can even like put an address in that it will like pop and remind you when you pull into an address that like you could do time, you can do an address. So like I could pull in a home and it would be like, put that ham in, girl. Like I can have reminders. And so I used Google Keep for a little while, but then I just ended up using my calendar. But it also makes me think. I go from building to building, and I am not afraid to tell someone if I have a conversation with them. I will say, you have to email, you have to put that in my inbox, or I will never remember this conversation happened, because I will walk out and I will be stopped by 10 more people, or I might have 3 more schools that I have to go to. And I do not want to forget, but if I don't make that mental note, I won't think about it until I am in the shower at 5 a.m. 10 weeks later. That is when I will think about, oh no, that's when that's going to come up. So I love that, using your digital tools. My tip 5 for new perspectives, I was even thinking about like perspective of the classroom. Create spaces for collaboration and creativity in your classroom. Desks are fantastic, but in this 21st century, I think a lot of schools are using like the 4 C's, the communication, creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. Did I say that one? And so we want these students to do this, but the problem is if our classroom isn't set up for that, our classrooms need to reflect what we want students to be getting out of it. When we're thinking about classes where we're doing project-based learning, or where we want students to prototype, to sketch, to build, to make, to be able to be creative, we have to provide those spaces for students. When I first came to Plainfield, I came in February, and I came on the weekend. I had transferred to Plainfield, and there was this huge table that was like in the hallway, and I can't remember if it said trash or storage, whatever it said. And I found a janitor, and I was like, I want that table. He's like, it's huge. What are you going to do with it? You don't even have space. I'm like, we're throwing it in my classroom. So I put it right up in the front. I squeezed like desks together in pods, and then that table, oh my gosh. I would stand up on the table. I would dance on the table, not in a weird way. Like, like little, but we would, I'd have like crayons out. It would be a creative station. If you were done early, you could go there. It could be like a reward spot as well too. And there were just so many ways that my students absolutely loved having the table in the classroom. And that's where you got to go for rewards. That's where you got to go to work on projects together. That's where I met with students. That's where you had your stuff, just depending on what we needed for the week. And so it was just something so simple, but the kids would clamor to sit at the table. Well, that also meant that I had to set up what I call table norms. And I laminated it and I taped it on the table. These are the expectations. And if you can't follow those and be respectful of our table norms, then you cannot be at the table for that day. And so the kids, that was a privilege to them to be at the creative spot, to be in our collaborative table. And so it just kind of like changed the thinking that was in there. So whatever you can do, take a look at your room. Maybe there is a table that somebody's throwing out. Maybe there's a different way you can pot up your class. I promise you, I think for a long time when I first started teaching, I was afraid, like I wanted my desks in rows because I'm like, well, if they're facing each other and they're not paying any attention to me. And that's because I didn't have very many tools in my teacher toolbox yet. But I promise you that if you can set up those expectations for students and set up those norms, they can really thrive in a collaborative setting. So make sure you kind of rethink your spaces for creativity and collaboration this year. And don't dance on tables, I guess. I meant like Irish jig. I was a history teacher, so there was just, I would sing like Pocahontas every once in a while, never bored in the class.
Yeah. It reminded me of like one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
That was definitely your treasure.
Yeah.
So tip 6, this speaks to me. Try not to take things so personally this year. And this one's hard. It seems like there's just so much heavy in the education world, I guess the world in general, because opinions and egos and all of that, and it's all out there on social media, and it is hard, and not just for teachers, but as humans, we really do care about what people think and say about us, even if sometimes we say or act like we don't care. We do care. But the next time you get an email from a parent that sets you on edge, or a student is just a tad bit mean, consider this. It's not always about you, and usually it's not. Their words were personal, but are they lashing out because they're having a bad day? Is there something going on at home? Probably one of those. These are all things we don't know when we don't have the whole story. Did something happen on the bus? There's probably something else going on. So sometimes when something like that happens, it's best to just talk to a friend, step back from a situation before reacting, and giving others grace allows us to separate that attack from the person's situation, give ourselves grace while we're at it. And it just gives us a better peace of mind. And that's what we really need in those situations is we just need to be done with that, move on, go on with our day and be ready for the next day.
Absolutely. I am so glad that you said that because no matter if it's beginning, middle, or end of the year, like we do have to have those conversations with ourselves and with each other, right? So my next tip goes a little bit away from the emotional side. And it's okay, you're getting ready to start a new year. Get yourself some new fun things to surround yourself with. This is not a flower in a vase. This is a tape dispenser.
Cute.
The double-edged magnetic dry erase board that it just dry erase marker, sorry, that just sticks to my board right up here above my computer. Like it sounds so silly, but like January 15th, I'm walking in my classroom and I'm like, oh, isn't that fun? I can stick my marker on the board. Like it's just a new perspective of how you walk into your space and how you use your things. So maybe it's a new package of crayons. Maybe it is a new fun sign or something. But just if you're out or if you've maybe bought something in August and you've kept it in the drawer, like pull it out and have some fun and just spruce up your space a little.
Well, especially now because up here, it's like every day is gray. So if we have some kind of bright in our rooms, I feel like it just boosts our mood a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. I'm a gum person, so I treated myself to like big packs of gum. But now everybody in the office knows I have these here, and I just leave them out on my desk. It helps me continue to think. And I got Altoids, big mint person. So mine might not be markers, but mine is treats.
I'm a cup person. I like my cups. So I always have a cute cup.
Yeah. I love this.
Now I can't have chocolate once again, and on that Biggest Loser, I can't let my team down too bad. Chipotle did me in today, but chocolate will not be my enemy. That makes me think too. Going kind of back to what Melissa had said about taking things personally, one of the big things that I am consistently trying to catch myself on, I'm a lot better, I'm a work in progress on it, but it's stopping the comparison game. And I think I accidentally do it every once in a while. I just have to delete all Instagram. I have to delete Facebook. I have to delete whatever it is, whatever social media platform that I'm on. I deleted TikTok a while ago because it just was eating my time away. But what I have found is I follow a lot of teachers and I get really excited. I see all the cool things that they do. And then I almost feel sometimes too overwhelmed. Like it's almost too many things. And then I'm like, comparing myself without even kind of realizing that I'm comparing myself. My home right now, I am, this is my first year in this new role. I'm getting my master's. I'm a mom to little kids. My husband has a big boy job that keeps him out of the house quite a bit. And so when I really think about how much I'm balancing, sometimes even when I see the clean Instagram, the people who clean on there, I catch myself looking around and being like, oh, my house is kind of messy without even really realizing I'm comparing myself. So I hope that this year that you can catch yourself when you see someone being a rock star teacher, sit with that. Don't feel overwhelmed. Be praise them and be a cheerleader for them and be okay with everybody being a little different. And we're all rock stars in our own way. And so the best way that I have found to kind of practice that is through gratitude. And I know that for a while I was seeing that where people are like, well, practice gratitude, practice, but you really just take a moment. For me, it's my kids. I can really feel the gratitude when I'm with my children. It just gets your mind away from how you were comparing or how you were thinking that you were not enough, and get that. And when you have that narrative in your head, when you get that imposter syndrome, I have to say, sometimes if I have imposter syndrome, I have to find my trusted friend and I have to say out loud, like, this is the lie that I'm telling myself right now. I am telling myself that I'm not good enough in the following ways. And, as soon as I say it out loud, then I'm like, okay, that's silly. Like, okay, like, I don't need to feel that way about myself. So instead of fixating on what you didn't accomplish, focus on what you did get through. Focus on the impact you made with your students. Melissa even said a little bit of like those small wins, right? Believe it or not, your peers, your administrators, your students, they all recognize your perseverance and your hard work. So make sure that instead of comparing yourself to others, that you are focusing on your positives and understand what a huge difference you make in students' lives and in your own family's lives. And they are watching you. And, they pick up on when you're sad or when you're comparing yourself to others. And we do have to be good role models for the people that we are raising and for the students that are in our classroom.
You are so right. That imposter syndrome, all of that it's just that evil. If I could teach young women, especially women, about one thing, it would be imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It will stop you from taking risks and you will miss out on opportunities if you're not aware and right on it. And I love what you said, Julia, about like you have to speak it out loud to realize what you're saying internally to yourself. Because you wouldn't allow anyone to talk to one of your friends that way. So you shouldn't allow yourself to talk to yourself that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's real. Imposter syndrome is real, but the words are so not real because it is all just in your head. So it's natural to be frustrated if things don't go your way, but sometimes we just have to move on and try again because it's the only thing we can do. Not everything is perfect, and we all know that, and that's okay. And that's okay. But we cannot just pervase over that.
So that makes me think about our next tip. How many of us have been grade level teacher? It's January, and the teacher in the grade level above you comes to you and is like, hey, so I'm noticing that all of the kids that you sent me are having trouble with, and it's like not a direct, slam or anything. It's just an observation. But what do we hear? We hear like, oh my gosh, like I failed. I didn't do my job. I don't know. How could I have? And then we start like running through all the excuses and like, the individual humans that make up that class and all the things. And so I started doing this a couple years ago. I was a first grade teacher, and I would so intentional about making time to meet with the second grade teachers and making time to meet with the kindergarten teachers. And what it did is it kept the conversation going. I will never forget the first time that I met with the second grade teachers. And we were like, okay, what should we bring to kind of prepare our conversation? And we're like, you know what? I don't know that we've ever sat down and been intentional about looking at the actual like direct correlation of the report card. So I was like, let's look at like number fluency. What are the expectations on the report card as a parent, from a parent perspective, for first grade, for second grade? And then they were like, we noticed that like a lot of kids aren't coming in, like they're not as strong with telling time. And I'm like, that's kind of funny because that's not really hit heavy in our curriculum in first grade. And they were like, that's why. So then it wasn't a me problem. It was like a curriculum problem. And then we all communicated and we figured out some cool things. And I was able to slide some things into my calendar time, into my station time, into my, like my math real world experience time. And that was just an example of shooting from the hip of how this could be beneficial. New perspective. Look at yourself and what you're teaching from the lens of the grade level below and of above. Because let me tell you, after that couple years in first grade, I went back down to teach kindergarten. And I showed up in August and I was like, listen, y'all, I've been on the other side. Like, we have got some work to do. And the kids were so cute. They were like, okay, all right, Mrs. Stevens. But it was lovely because, again, and this is just an example, I knew in first grade that they had to not only know how many days we had been in school, but how many days were left. And so from the very beginning in August in kindergarten, I started that conversation. And you guys, I had kindergartners leading calendar time, sharing with everyone, like, this is how we find out how many days we've been in school. This is how many days are left. And I was like, you guys are going to rock first grade. I just know it. So just a new perspective on the teaching and the learning, and just having crucial conversations where it's not about us, it's about the curriculum, it's about of course the teaching and learning, but the tiny humans, at least in my world, that are coming to you every day and just wanting to grow, not only through the year of school with you, but through the entire experience in your building, in your corporation or district. So
I love that. I bet you're the best kindergarten teacher ever. I bet you're so cute with the littles.
We have fun.
I'm a big kid teacher.
Kindness is magic. So we talk about that a lot,
Yeah.
So we big kids.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. That does make me think. We started having some alignment conversations in our grade level bands a couple years ago, and we found out that a lot of our English teachers were having their students read Red Scarf Girl. And as a social studies teacher, we talked about China. And so we had to purposely move our unit. So then by the time they got to Red Scarf Girl, they had already been through our China unit. And so they had all this prior knowledge that when they read Red Scarf Girl, that's from China in the Mao Zedong time, they had so much better context and so much better understanding of the book, and the teachers were like, that was such a better experience with the book, that because the students had all this prior knowledge that they could pull on, and they had a better understanding and appreciation, and they had more excitement to read the book instead of it just being something they've never even heard of. So that was a cool experience too. Wow. Yeah. So finally, for tip number 10, it goes to balance for the new year. Balance, 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 balance. One of the biggest issues of the teaching profession is maintaining a work-life balance. I think that's because a lot of us don't consider this a job. This is our passion. I think if you ask me who I am, I will tell you I'm a mother. I'll tell you I'm Julia. And then in the top 3, I'm telling you I'm a teacher. And so it's something that I identify as. And so sometimes you do tend to give your all. And that's not a terrible thing. But man, when I sometimes am giving my all, then I'm like, wait, how many more years do I have? When do I retire? And then I find out it's a couple decades. And then I'm like, oh, baby girl's got to slow. I got to pump the brakes just a little bit.
I think we all just got our retirement letters too, saying you have X amount of years until you retire. So there's a new perspective.
Right. You're like, oh, better slower down just a little bit. Yes. So during this time that you got to maintain a long and healthy career. So, when you're trying to do those little at-home grading, try to find, if you're grading every week, I know that we have English teachers who are doing writing. There's so many different important ways that we have to assess and give our students feedback. Start trying to break it down a little bit. Even if you had your students do a long writing assignment, could you just focus on one paragraph? Can you brainstorm ways to make it just a little bit more manageable of some things? And then every once in a while, I had those stacks of paper that after a week, they would weigh heavily on me. And finally, I'd be like, oh, they accidentally fell in the recycling bin. Those days when I had just a little bit more work-life balance, depending on what it was. And I just checked it off. Everybody got a 10 on that one. We can't do that with all of our grading assignments, but kind of keep in mind that when it comes to grading, if that's the biggest thing for you, if it's lesson creation, what is it that's your biggest time suck? And then kind of go back and manage and see, okay, well, if it's lessons, what's already out out there, or what are my teammates doing, or what can maybe I need to join some kind of group where they're sharing resources instead of creating all of my own. Or, I'm grade 16 different things a day. Maybe I need to kind of cut that back and kind of see what's the most important thing I can grade to assess my students' learning for today. And I think January is that perfect time to examine our practices for both personal and at school. And I think even in the middle of the year with this new calendar, it's the perfect time for a reboot and a perfect time to kind of decide like what's working for you and what's not. Definitely find that balance. And that even goes to at home. I had just talked about deleting social media, and that's because I just did it again because I was not balancing my time appropriately. Because when I was going home, I was scrolling on social media, and it was almost like my crutch because I was tired. And that's how I was spending my time at home. Like any second that was filled, I'd sit on the couch and I didn't just sit. Instead of picking up a book, I'd pick up my phone. And then an hour later, I'm watching someone scrub floors on Instagram. And really, that's fine every once in a while to spend my time like that, but I was spending too much time, and so I needed to balance that, and so I had to cut social media out of my life. So think of kind of like what can you balance, and a part of that balance, what maybe needs to be cut off, like what is shifting that you're not balanced, that we're doing a little too much of, or something that's not serving you.
Balance. Yes. Oh my goodness. And it's so wild that we are finishing on this because I've taught all day. I've been looking forward to chatting with you and with our Keep Indiana Learning community. And as soon as we sign off, I get to sign back in and teach at my yoga Pilates class and then run some kids to sports. And so it's like at those moments when we stop and reflect and just listen. So there might be a lot of noise, and just listen, and maybe you find the tips and tricks, or maybe you come together like we are as a community and just be there for each other to help with that balance, to stay upright, to stay vertical is what one of my trainers always says. It's like, stay vertical. Oh my goodness, I love this.
Where do we get the link to join your Pilates class?
Oh yeah, I would love. Oh, you guys, that would be amazing. That should be our next Survivor series. I believe. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
I love it. I'm in. And you know what? My Biggest Loser teammates would thank you as well too, because I.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of which, we've got so much coming up, don't we, guys?
Oh, we definitely do. So coming up in February, we're going to talk about surviving teacher burnout, because I just think February is the perfect time for that. Melissa had talked earlier about the doom and gloom and the gray. So how do we survive teacher burnout? Because it is real, my friends. In March, we're going to be doing surviving post-spring break discipline of bringing those children back in after maybe they've been to Disney and they have eaten 1-2 bit of candy or staying up till 2 a.m. every single night. So bringing back, getting our students back in line. We're going to do something in April. I don't think we've decided yet. Maybe we were talking about unpacking acronyms. If you had a suggestion for us, you're welcome to leave it in on comments on Keep Indiana Learning Facebook or anywhere. And then if you go back in October, we talked about surviving spooky parents. And then in December, it was surviving observations, formal observations. So definitely go back and check that out.
I'm going to make a note because I got a tip from a teacher. She said, you always talk about these things that are happening during the summer. She's like, isn't that like when we're supposed to like exhale? And I said, yeah, but you can fill your cup too, if that's how you choose. But, all three of us are always presenting. We're always out in the community. Maybe we could help newer teachers or teachers that maybe have not been to summer learning experiences know and understand better how to sign up. Like, what do concurrent sessions mean? What do workshops? So I was thinking about that. So let's make.
That would be cool. Surviving summer PD and all over Indiana. We could do an Indiana focus because we're even doing something here in Plainfield as well too. So where can you go? Where can you sign up? I love that. That would be pretty cool.
Like it.
Be on the lookout for all of our sessions. We hope that you just have enjoyed this conversation. I know I've enjoyed this conversation. Just such a lovely opportunity to sit back and lift each other up and to say like, hey, you're doing a great job. So Keep Indiana Learning, we are here. We've got a great platform, so much learning. Our digital learning coaches are here as well.
Mhm.
And if you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. We will keep coming back with more to fill your cup. So thank you.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.